Welcome to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast, a place to discuss pain, passion, and pursuits.
Let's get it. I want to feel alive.
Breathe.
Make some moves.
Protect the throne. This is Sexy Freedom Media Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sexy Freedom Media Podcast. It's your host, Helen Edwards and
January Liddell. Aloha.
Exciting that we're here for the second podcast of 2023 together. We got an exciting episode today for you. It is going to be on the subject of debt, and we're going to talk about why get out of debt, why it's important to get out of debt. And let's start with our first one, why we think you should get out of debt, why we think we should get out of debt. Because your monthly expenses will drop. What do you think, January?
Our monthly expenses will drop in terms of if we're in debt. Are we talking about being in debt at this moment?
We're talking about why we should get out of debt.
Oh, why should we? Oh, well, yes. Girl, yes. So then when we get out of debt, yeah, our monthly expenses will drop. We can actually use it to invest somewhere else. We can use it for fun stuff. We can use it, for practically anything. So I think the reasons for getting out of debt, there's so many benefits. One, you'll be stress-free, right? In terms of finances. That's number one. Number two, then you can utilize that money for something else. Number three, you can upgrade yourself. Sometimes when we're in debt, there are certain things that we deprive ourselves of, right? Like getting our nails done or going to that fancy restaurant or, taking that trip. And so now you don't have to deprive yourself. So yeah, there's several reasons for why it's vital to get ourselves out of debt.
I think what we're going to go ahead and do is just name the 5 reasons why we think you should get out of debt. And then we'll just talk about them openly, since we're already kind of counting some. So the first reason is, like we said, your monthly expenses will drop. Number 2, you're like January was saying, you can free up your personal cash flow, which allows you to focus on savings and daily living expenses or things that you want to do. 3, there's more freedom to fortify your financial health and take advantage of new opportunities. 4, increase your self-worth, no longer feeling like a slave to the master when it comes to owing money to someone or in large debts to another person or corporation. And number 5, which is the most best feeling of all, is freedom, freedom, freedom.
Yes, which is why we want to get ourselves out of debt. So I just want to, let's backtrack a little because we did talk about number 3. I want to talk a little bit more in depth, more freedom to fortify your financial health and take advantage of new opportunities. As we mentioned, earlier, once you get out of debt, then you're able to utilize your finances to either one, get that membership for the gym or hire actually a trainer to get you, fit and where you want to go in terms of your health wise. And then of course, take advantage of new opportunities. There's several ways to invest. And as you've heard, it's really vital to diversify your portfolio. So now that you're not thinking about debt, now you're able to say, well, I can actually put this money somewhere else where I can actually leverage it a lot more and grow your wealth a lot more. So yeah, absolutely. What about number 4, Helen?
So one thing I learned when I took Dave Ramsey's class was that you're a slave to the master if you owe any money to anybody or anything. And I like the way that he said that because it did feel like the dynamic changed, especially if I owed money to a friend. That was like, oh my God, never, never, never again going to borrow money from a friend and never, ever going to loan money to a friend because it does change the dynamic of the relationship. There's so many people out there where their relationships fell apart. And in that, this insecurity just hovers over you, this lack of faith in yourself, this disapproval, unworthiness comes over you like a dark cloud. Because if you can't pay it, you're struggling to pay it back, you kind of shut off the relationship or you hide. Even from yourself, you feel like there's just all of these negative things you start saying about yourself to yourself, and your self-worth really decreases. But when you're able to get out of debt, your self-worth actually improves. All of that debt is like weight on your shoulders and starts lifting off. So your confidence and your glow just starts getting brighter.
So I love that because yes, when we're in debt, there's this different feeling it's like this rock that's on your shoulders. And I believe, like, statistically wise, couples fight about money. That's like one of the most things that couples fight about is money. And I was listening to a podcast, and it's a couple, and they were talking about how in the beginning they had $100,000 debt, and in the beginning they never wanted to talk about money because it was just such a strain on their relationship, and they had this like feeling of dread every time they talked about money. So the interviewer asked, well, how often do you talk about money now? Well, now that they're not in debt, it's a lot easier for them to talk about money daily. And I love that question. How often do you talk about money? So for those, those of us who are in debt and knees deep in debt, right? It's really hard to talk about money because then you're like, you're dreading like, that all of your money is going to go into that particular, debt. So yeah, definitely a slave to the master, and it's not a good feeling. So yeah, so it's vital for us to get out of debt. But I think one of the first things that we should do is change that mindset. And one of the things that the couple said is that it's not a marathon, but a sprint. And you know me, I love to run. And so that was actually a really good analogy of how we should chop down our debt. And it was talking about like quarterly, actually things in quarters. So I don't know, I think I might be jumping the gun in terms of how we can like get out of debt.
No, I really love that. I love the fact that you said, why aren't we talking about money, or let's talk about money, because money is so attached to our emotions from childhood, and it's so blueprinted on us that there's always something tied to the conversation around money, even with ourselves. I know when I first got out of debt, I followed the Dave Ramsey program. It was so simple. I didn't have to pay thousands of dollars to learn a program on how to do it. It was literally like $99 for the program for, I think it was like 6 or 7 weeks or something. And I went and then I applied it, and I did exactly what he said, put money in envelopes, and not to get in all the tips, but I followed the program to the T, and I got out of debt for the first time in my life. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, what? Now, at the time I had a super beat up car. I was really living within my means. I mean, I was like on a strict budget, but I was debt free. And then I decided, oh my God, now I've got all this money freed up. I'm going to go to college. Within the first semester, I was thousands of dollars in debt again. And it was just such a awful feeling for me. I was like, oh my God, like, I cannot believe I'm thousands of dollars in debt again. And the semester classes I took, I had already learned all this by reading books. And I was just like, this is crazy. So I ended up dropping out of college, and not in a negative way, but it was actually really positive for me, because I knew I wasn't like, I knew I'd already learned that education. Why am I retaking it and paying thousands of dollars for it? So I decided to drop out and focus again, paying down that debt. And, it took me a while, but again, I became debt free. And it's such a freedom feeling, being able to use that money that's coming in towards, towards the things you want to do. Like you were saying, get a personal trainer, but also taking trips with your family, instead of saying, I can't because I've got this and that. Now it's like, actually, let me see if it's in my budget. And if it is, if I've got an extra amount of fund money, yes, I can do that. I will do that. There's a lot more language that goes into it when you do take control of your money and get out of debt. When you get out of debt, you feel like you're actually the pilot of your plane, the captain of your ship. because there's no other driving force that's driving you. You're more making the decisions for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then you are your money manager. So you become the money manager instead of money managing you. Now you're managing the money. So you become the boss, whereas when you're in debt, it's that feeling of, oh my gosh, like the interest rate keeps tacking on and all this. Oh, it can be so stressful. So all right, so let's move on. So number 5, the freedom. I think the freedom aspect, definitely the freedom aspect, like we were talking about, it's like this weight lifted off your shoulders and you can actually do more. You can do more and feel more and dream more. Like things just change and shift once you're out of debt. All right, so let's talk about the tips, Helen. You ready to talk about the tips?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, so these tips will help you get out of debt. Number 1, stop comparing yourself to other people, keeping up with the Jonases or Kardashians.
The Joneses. I might have spelled that wrong.
Joneses.
Number 2, make a budget and stick to it.
All right. Number 3, get a part-time job, a side gig or side hustle, and increase your monthly revenue.
Number 4, have a few no spend days. Get creative with your time.
Wait, can I just say something about that? Because so my children and I are doing this, we're doing this contest here in my house. And the contest is, let's see how much we can save for the month. So a lot of the times when the kids and I go out, the kids are like, can you get this for me? Can you get this for me? And of course I'm like, okay, I say yes. And there's times that I say no, but there are moments where it's something little, I say yes, but then those little things add up. Okay. So every time they want something, I'm having them take note of it, of what it was and how much it was, how much that product was. And so each time they go out and they're like, I want this. I'm like, all right, we'll just write it down. Let's put it down in that save. So the contest is who can save more. So we're seeing like how much the kids can save. And then of course I will reward them at the end of the month. But that is, my daughter did a really good thing. Proud of her. We were at a store and she's like, I want this. I want this. I'm like, are you saving? So then she's like, okay, you know what? Let me take this out. So yeah, it's a fun game that we're playing.
Kids love games, so that's so awesome that you're doing that and you're interacting with them in a playful way. Bravo, mama. Bravo. Okay, what number are we on?
We are on that was the no spend days. That was number 4. So number 5.
Okay, number 5, focus completely on paying down debt.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about it because that is actually like the meat and potatoes of this conversation is focus on paying off debt. There's so many different strategies. There's the Dave Ramsey strategy. There's the strategy that I was using, and it's the 101 Financial. It's here in Hawaii, but I know they're everywhere. So what they say is, to put it in a spending account. So it's a line of credit. You put all of your debt in here and then you put all of your checking account, your paycheck in there and you just kind of drop it. It drops it down. It's quite fascinating. It's a whole formula, but that's another way to focus on paying down your debt, is using a spending account. Do you have any other tips, Helen?
Yeah, I'm going to run through them and I'm probably going to circle back. So number 6 is join a group, get a coach or mentor, take classes on financial freedom to learn how to pay down your debt. What's number 7?
7. Number 7. We have declutter your house. Is that what it is? Declutter your house, sell stuff, use that money and pay off debt.
Okay, number 8 is write down all your debt, know your numbers.
Yeah, that's probably one thing that we should do first, actually, is put it down first. And then like sometimes actually seeing the numbers can be like stressful. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is what I have, but really that's the first step in trying to tackle down our debt is really looking at the numbers and honing in on, all right, which one is the high interest rate? You know, let's tackle the high interest rate first, because obviously if you tackle the high interest rate first, then you're eliminating all those extra fees that are coming that way. So tackle that's what I do. I eliminate the high interest first. Number 9.
Okay, so number 9 is pay the smallest debt as fast as possible, which I'll probably circle back to. Number 10, January.
Number 10, break up with expenses you don't need that aren't adding value to your life right now while you pay your debts. I love that.
Boom, there you have it. There's 10 tips to help you get out of debt. These are just 10 tips. There's so many tips out there. All you have to do is Google them. But I do want to touch base on, some of these. And I think one I'm circling back to is the number 8, which is write down all your debt and know your numbers. January's right. The first thing I had to do when I got out of debt is I printed out all of my credit scores from all of the credit companies like Equifax, and I wanted to see what was on my credit report. Who did I owe money to that I didn't know about? Who were debt collectors that were trying to get money that I didn't know about? Was there any fraud on my accounts? Things like that. So that way I can contact them and see what exactly I owe, if there was a way for them to settle on certain amounts, for me to go ahead and close this out. And also with my credit card, I want to know what was on my credit cards that I had. I remember the first time I got out of debt, I had a Macy's card, I had a Target card, and I was like, why do I have these cards? I had a Victoria's Secret card, and they were large amounts, and I rarely used or wore the stuff that I got from there. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'd wear stuff from Goodwill rather than wear something at Macy's that I got. It was insane. So I was like, okay, I need to figure this out, and I need to pay down these as fast as possible. So I wrote down all of my debt. Just give it to me. Just pull the Band-Aid off and give me the numbers. Like, what is it that I owe?
Yes. Oh, I love that. Just pull the Band-Aid off, because yes, you just gotta do it. The fastest way to getting to your goal is actually acknowledging like where you are at this very moment, and accepting, hey, look, this is where I'm at. There's no judgment, but just, hey, this is where we're at. Now, what do we do? So I love that you're like, just rip it out and just do it. So absolutely looking at your numbers, because without that, then you won't have a map. So really the next thing is your map. How are you going to tackle it down? And one of the things that Helen was mentioning was tackling down the smallest debt. That's easy, right? When you see like $100, $50, whatever, it's like, oh, all right, let me just pay that off. You pay it off, cross that off your list. And it feels so good once you cross that off your list. Now you can, do incrementals, and one of the things, like I said earlier, is paying down the debt with the highest interest rate, because that way it's not accruing more interest. So that's another strategy that I use. The other one that I heard today was actually really fascinating, and I liked it. And it was quarterly. Now, when she said quarterly, I was thinking of, like Klarna and Affirm or whatever, all of those, payment things. And I love that because it breaks it down into little
Wait,
chunks.
for a second, I don't know what Klarna is. Can you be a little bit more specific on it?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So Klarna, Affirm, and there's another one, Afterpay. So there's 3 different types of methods of payment. Like if you go to like a store, right, whether it be Walmart or like whatever, they have these like payment plan things, and it's
Okay. I know what
yeah.
you're talking about. So now when you go and order something online, it'll say the amount, but below it in small letters, it will say, or you can make payments of $5.29 per month through Klarna, things like that. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, but the way that I'm thinking about it now, right? The way that I'm looking at it now is that this is a method that you can do for yourself to start paying off your debt, because now you're looking at little chunks. And instead of it being like this daunting amount, like, oh my gosh, I have to pay this huge amount. Well, no, you can actually do it like every 2 weeks, right? Don't go to Starbucks, save that money and put it in your debt, pay it off in your debt. Don't go to McDonald's or wherever. Just get that money, and every 2 weeks now you're gonna break it into chunks. So once you know what those numbers are, number two, you can do all the other things that we talked about earlier, but you can also use the I'm gonna call it the Klarna method. I don't know. I haven't really the quarterly method. You can do that, and then break it into like payments of 4 or whatever. I'm like, okay, how much can I like pay in 4 payments or whatever, and see how that looks, because that figure will be much less.
I think one thing that I was thinking about as you're telling me this was it wasn't just me all by myself trying to do this. The thing that was so key for me was having a tribe of cheerleaders around me that knew I was trying to completely get out of debt. Because one specific memory comes to mind when I had gotten like a $1,200 bonus. And I remember telling my friend, oh my God, I got this bonus. I'm definitely going to go get that jacket I've always wanted. And then I was like, but should I, or should I just pay that one credit card off? Like, boom, get it done and over with. And I remember my friend was the one that said, Helen, pay the debt off. And I thought, oh my God, she's telling me to pay my debt off. And I really want this leather jacket. And I wavered back and forth, and she goes, dude, I'm telling you, I've been seeing you pay your debt off, and this would be so huge for you. Think about how great you're going to feel afterwards. I'll never forget how impactful that was for me. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And she goes, do it now. Do it now. And I was like, right now? She's like, yeah. And I got on the phone with my creditor at that second, called, paid the credit card off. And right after, she was like, how do you feel? And I was like, oh my God, I feel amazing. And when your friends know that you're trying to get out of debt, and if they're really good, healthy friends, they're going to be like, hey, I'll come and hang out with you at your house and watch a movie and drink wine or whatever it is. Like, I'll come with you and we'll go through a drive-in movie where we can, the costs are super, super tiny low. That they're going to want to do things with you that are not going to cost you an arm and leg and put you more in debt. What do you think, January?
Oh my gosh, it's nice to have cheerleaders and people who will encourage you and think the best for you. So one, get those type of friends. Don't be with the ones that are like, no, grab this, because there are those types of friends too. Nothing wrong with them, but they have a different goal. And so good to be with friends who are financially savvy. And I have some of those too. So it's nice to, kind of be on the same like wavelength. I totally get it. So, all right, what's our next one? Let me see. I'm looking at our list. I love that we have a list, Helen, because we can, kind of jump back and forth with it. Okay, so we did talk about the breakup with expenses. Oh, breakup with expenses. Oh my gosh, I love that one. Okay, breakup with expenses and like you said, your leather jacket, you broke up with that. Did you ever buy it, by the way? No, okay, so yeah, breakup with expenses that actually don't add value. There are certain things that I, when I'm online or on my phone, actually, when I'm on my phone and I'm looking at things and I'm like, oh, that's really nice. Okay, so for example, okay, last night I was on my phone in the middle of the night. I couldn't go back to sleep, so I was on the phone and I was thinking about a Louis Vuitton purse. Okay, so I was thinking about this Louis Vuitton purse and I'm like, oh, that looks really nice. And the reason I was thinking about it was I saw a friend had it. I was like, oh, that's so nice, And then I thought to myself, but do I need it? Like, is that something that's going to really add value to me? I'm going to tell you, Helen, I have like Gucci purses and they don't. It's like they're just purses to me. And it doesn't, I would rather use that money for something that matters, like going on vacation with my family, experiences, buying experiences for my family, rather than a single purse that really does not add value. And this goes back to the keeping up with the Joneses and Kardashians.
Yeah.
Yeah, because go ahead.
No, I like that you mentioned that, just having more time with your family. And it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about with the whole cheerleader group around you, because expenses can be going out to dinner 3 times a week with your friends, going out to the bar every Friday with your friends, going to, the movies are so expensive now, going to the movies every weekend. There's this idea that every weekend you've got to go out and you've got to spend money and you got to do something, fun. And sure, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. But when you are in mountains of debt, the debt's still waiting for you when you come home. You can leave it behind for a second, but it's still going to be there. And you don't want to come home to debt. You want to get rid of the debt so you can go out, have a good time, and come home to freedom. Go out to freedom, come home to freedom. Freedom is your life. Freedom is your world.
Ooh, hence Sexy Freedom Media Podcast, which is why we're talking about this, because, one of the questions that was asked was, well, why is it important for you to be wealthy or have abundance? And really, for me, it is about that freedom. I now that we're managing our money much better, I do feel that sense of freedom, of, oh, we can, buy the things that we want to buy and go and whatever. But, I have the choice. I can do it or I don't have to do it. Right. And one of the things too, that I like what you said was about how, when you're with friends, there's that pressure of, oh, let's go to dinner. Let's go, do this, and yes, you're right. Movies are very expensive these days. I mean, I think for a family of 4, we spent like $150 in one day, and that's ridiculous. Sometimes it could be 200, depending on what we buy. So that's crazy. So, I kind of like when we were in lockdown where we weren't able to do all that stuff and we had to be creative about how we can have fun. So we hiked a lot, we walked around a lot, we had movie nights at our house where it's like, okay, popcorn, turn it, whatever. You can make it, you can get creative with it, right? So I think part of the not getting out of debt situation, people get complacent. So people can get complacent and it's okay for them to be paying that minimum, right? The minimum. But really, I think one needs to ask themselves, is this where you want to be? Like, do you want to be in this kind of realm where you are, like we said earlier, a slave to the master, or do you want to do you want to level up? Do you want to level up or upgrade yourself? So it's kind of in that, a teeter-tottering, right? You got to ask that question, like, do I want to be like this? Do I want to feel this way for the rest of my life? Because that debt, if you are just paying the minimum, it'll take you years and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to get out of it. So really that question, I think before you look at your numbers is, where do you want to be? Do you want to be stuck in this debt, or do you want to get out of it?
How bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? It kind of goes back to our last podcast. And if you haven't listened to our last podcast, go check out our episode 127, Shifting into Money Mindset. We talked about people who want abundance this year or last year or the next year. There's always these prayers, for wealth, health, and glorious things in your life. But then, you're like, okay, but why am I stuck here? Why am I stuck here? Why am I stuck here? Okay. Jay Krishnamurti said, there's a quote he says, and he says, the solution is not separate from the problem. Where the problem is, you'll find the solution. So they go hand in hand. And you want to say something about that? Oh,
that was just a mic drop. Like, yeah, it does go hand in hand. Absolutely.
So, there's this saying also that this person went out to pray to God and said, God, I need money to pay my rent this month. Oh my God, I need money to pay help me pay my rent, God, please. And then the money never came. And oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then God finally said, I thought you heard me the first time. And they were like, no, what did you say? And they were like, look in your closet. Look in your closet. And basically the point was, you're wearing your money. You're wearing your riches. You're wearing it. And there's piles of that. Goes back to what was it? Number 7, declutter your house, sell stuff, use that money and pay off debt. And I remember back in the day when I was first starting to get out of debt and I was like, where do I get extra money from? I was already working 3 jobs. And I was, single mom, part-time. And, I had a little clunker And I was like, where am I going to get a little bit of extra money? And that was the whisper to me. Look in your closet. There was so many things in my closet I wasn't using. And I was like, I need to have a yard sale. So me and my friend Jessica decided to have a yard sale. And we put everything out there. We put boxes, $1, $5, $10. And people came and whatever they grabbed out of it, boom, that we were just cranking in the money. Not only did I declutter stuff that I wasn't using, it became somebody else's wealth. It became somebody else's prized material. And it put money in my pocket to help me pay down debt. So it was a win-win on that exchange there.
Yeah, I think I like that you said that. Hey, we got our riches in the closet. That is so true because we have so much, we've accumulated so much over the years. And yes, you're right. If you need money, then you're able to sell something to get something back, right? So just the other week, my daughter was ready to give away her toy kitchen. So she has this beautiful deluxe kitchen, that she had when she was 1. She's now 7 and she's like, I'm ready to give it away. I'm like, okay. So we put it on sale along with some accessories, and she made $120, $130, something like that. And so she got the money, right? So she has her money. We went to the bank, and each of the children have their own accounts. So we put it in, she put in the money. And I love that because it's teaching her the value of, one, not keeping things or attaching yourself to things. And 2, she's decluttering her room now, so she has more space. And 3, now she knows, like, oh, I have all these toys that I can sell. I can make money, right? So she's thinking, what else can she give away? So that's that, right? So the opportunity to make more money, right? And now, of course, she's learning about saving. So I think it's vital for us to, as parents, because I know you're a mom, it's vital for us to really teach this to our children. That's probably another podcast that I'd love to have, is how to teach this to our children. Because I know as a child, I wasn't really taught how to manage my finances properly, or at all, we didn't really talk about that. But in my family, so we have family meetings every Saturday at 9:00. And this month, the topic of our family meeting is about money and wealth. And so that's something, and financial literacy. So that's something that I want to talk about with them throughout the whole year. One of the things that's important to me is that we should be talking about money daily. Not that I'm like a slave to money, or like, I'm worshiping money, because it's not even the case about it. But we need money in order to have fun. We need money in order to survive, in order to enjoy life. So that's the exchange, right? In terms of money. So that's another thing we talked about in the other podcast, was our relationship to money. What is your relationship to money? Is it that dread feeling that you feel, or is it that, oh, hello, money, how are you? Good morning, beautiful, type of feeling? Like, what kind of relationship do you have with money? So as a parent, I want my children to have that good relationship with money. And so that's where I'm starting. It's with my
We definitely are going to have a podcast on teaching our kids about money, because I think that's a really great topic. So subscribe, share, make sure that you tune in, because we're going to have that subject for sure. Going back to the subject of debt, though, write down all your debt. We talked about that. Paying the smallest debt as fast as possible, breaking up with expenses, decluttering your house, focus completely on paying things down, have no spend day, get a part-time job, side gig, increase your monthly revenue, make a budget and stick to it. I think the last one we should talk about here is join a group, get a coach or mentor, or take classes on financial freedom to learn how to pay down debt. What are your thoughts, January?
So I hired somebody to help me with my debt. This was years ago. And it was good. It was good to have that accountability partner to actually help me look at, where we're spending and budgeting. So what I liked about that is that my coach was not judgmental of me at all. She was like, oh, okay, yeah, you can do this. Sure, sure. And it was so matter of factly, not like, like putting me down at all. So it was a nice relationship. So yeah, definitely either hire a mentor or jump into a program like Helen did with Dave Ramsey. There's all sorts of programs out there. But I think, it's vital. It's vital for you to have some type of an accountability partner, and some type of somebody who can give you a strategy on how to get you out of debt.
Yeah, I think it's really important to find the coach, mentor, classes, workshops, or teacher out there who's going to teach you how to do it now, how to take steps now, right where you are. You could be overdraft in your accounts, and you need somebody who knows how to move you from overdraft into wealth building, like get on that train and start making moves. Because if you're trying to connect with somebody who's saying, I need you to invest $7,000 in my program now, and you're overdraft $7,000, like that's not going to be aligned with what you're trying to do. So you want to start with somebody who understands your situation and can move you forward from where you're at. For me, that was Dave Ramsey, because it was so simple. It was such a simple progress in so many, they're called baby steps. It was 7 baby steps, and it was so simple because I understood that language. It spoke from right where I was and where I could possibly be within like 1 year. So that was just a program I recommend. I know there's other programs out there, and take your chance on them, step forward into them. If they don't align with you, say thank you and move on to the next one.
Yeah. What was I going to say? The other thing about getting into program is budgeting. So budgeting is vital when it comes to eliminating debt. When I say budgeting, I really mean like put everything down, on paper, which goes back to like the whole mapping, right? Mapping out and to tackle your debt. One of the words or the phrases that somebody said in a podcast was what was it? It was like not fun money, but it was like the blow fund. So they had a blow fund, and it's okay to have a blow fund. Okay. So it's okay. But you got to budget it. Obviously, like when you're paying off your debt, it'll be lower, right? But you do have to have some kind of a blow fund. Even in the program that I used, it was called an allowance. So each of us had, my husband and I had an allowance of how much we were going to use. And so, I kind of want to touch about that too, because if you are married, you have a partner, bless you. If you have a partner, it's really important to be in that same mind frame with your partner. I'm thankful my husband actually allows me to like handle the finances. So he's like, whatever I say, which is nice, because he trusts me, and I trust him. And so we have that kind of relationship, and we do have like joint accounts. So we have a joint account. And the reason for that, I know it's a kind of controversial. Some marriages have like separate, but for us, it was more about transparency, and just kind of seeing like where both of us are, so we can actually tackle this together. So that's kind of what I wanted to touch on, is that you do have to at least align, whether you have separate accounts or joint accounts. If you are married, then you do have to have like your partner on the same page with you.
Totally have a partner that's on the same page, a partner who wants to get out of debt or doesn't believe in debt or is out of debt. I feel so thankful that me and my partner, my fiance, are 100% on board with being out of debt, staying out of debt. I can tell you how liberating that is. I've been with partners who, I've met and find out they're thousands upon thousands of $1,000s in debt. And here I am out of debt. And I'm like, oh my gosh, their debt could possibly become my debt. It's scary, but I think it's important that if you are with somebody, like January said, make sure you're aligned, that you want to get on the same page with building wealth and getting out of debt. Though one thing I wanted to mention, and I just want to share this lastly before we wrap it up here, just share a quick inspirational story of my own, and maybe January, if you have one too, of where we come from and where we're at now. I'm somebody who has practiced what I preach. So I'm not just speaking out of my ass with all these things. Like I've done these numerous times over. I was somebody, I've come from a poverty mindset, scarcity based programming. I've lived in shelters, I've grown up in the streets, I've showered in parks and creeks, and I've done that. I come from a single family home, single mom, 5 kids. It's rough. And so I grew up and I didn't know how to manage money, and I found myself homeless, living out of my car, and then I found myself carless, riding a bicycle 20 miles one way just to get to work for a few hours, and then riding 20 miles back. Trust me, I took ice baths. I've had multiple repos, okay, multiple withdrawals in my accounts. I've had a bank shut me down. So I know what it's like to feel like you're scrambling and struggling and you think you're never going to get out of this. But the game changer for me was the things we're talking about: jumping in a program. The little amount of money I had, $100, was a lot of money back then for me. And I invested in Dave Ramsey, and thank God it's the program that helped me. Also the cheerleaders around, these things were vital to changing me and boosting me up and to keep going. I remember the game change, the where I felt like I made it was when I bought not just 1, but 2 cars cash. And I realized I will never be in debt again with vehicles. I'm not going to have a payment for vehicles. Heck no, that's just me. If you're doing it, that's, to each their own. I don't know your story. I don't know your journey, but I know for me, I was like, I will never have a car payment again. And it's so liberating. Now I have a brand new car cash, but I just want to share this story because I want it to be inspiring to you that you can get out of debt. You can't, and if you have to do it a few times over, it's possible. Just keep trying and build your wealth from there. It is possible. And I'm only 42, which to some of you 20-year-olds, I'm just saying it's still young. It's still young. And I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. So it's possible. What about you, January?
Ooh, well, first of all, Helen, oh my gosh, your life should be a movie. Let me share that with you because that is insane that you had all those different experiences. But I bet those experiences have changed you and evolved you to be who you are today. So you are where you're at because of all those, hardships that you went through. I did go through hardships, not the hardships that you went through, but I did go through hardships. Like, I don't know if I mentioned this before in a podcast, but I came here to Hawaii with $200 in my bank account. I think I mentioned that before. $200 in my bank account. And at the time, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I actually didn't have a social security number. That was hard because I can't apply for any job, right? So I just can't, because then how am I going to pay for taxes? I mean, there was all these legal matters, that surrounded that. So I had to be creative in how I earn money, so I became a nanny and all that. And so in terms of hardships, I remember all I ate was ramen. All I ate was something that was really cheap. I didn't have anything else to eat. I remember a girlfriend of mine, she's like, oh my gosh, let me give you some money so you can have some chicken. Bonnie was so helpful during that time, to help me get something other than that. But once I started building my wealth, then of course it was like, yes, I got this for myself, and it is very liberating when you're able to be independent enough to get whatever you want. I remember when Sam and I were dating, I was actually the one paying for everything. I paid for our dates, I paid for our trips, I paid for everything. And I liked it. I was fine with it because I felt empowered because hello, I came to Hawaii with $200 in my bank account, right? So I'm like, oh yeah, I can fund our date, sure, and he was the one who actually had steady income, but I was able to fund it. So anyway, the whole point of me telling that story is that even after I was independent and I was able to do that, then there was a shift. The shift was that Sam was working and I became a stay-at-home mom. So now I'm a stay-at-home mom who's not earning a living because I'm, taking care of the kids, or well, at the time my son, and he's deployed. And we just made the agreement that I was going to stay home because it didn't make sense for both of us to be away from our son's life. And so I stayed home. So this kind of gave a different challenge, right? Now the challenge is I don't feel as independent as I used to. So I struggled with that for years, actually. And then, of course, my entrepreneurial spirit was always there. So I was always like looking for side gigs. I was always looking for or creating a business. In fact, I created Mama Loves Baby because it gave me the opportunity to look at different products that were efficient for me as a mom and for baby. Then I brought it here to Hawaii and I sold it, at my store, and that was so much fun. But it was a lot of work at the same time. So I'm like, I gotta work smarter, or I gotta work smarter rather than harder. Well, with all of that and all my business ventures, I accrued so much debt. So now all this debt is coming, and then the fights happen between my husband and I in terms of money. Then of course we had another child, and debt is just accruing because there's more people in the house and more things to buy and whatever. And so once we got out of that debt, it was definitely like a weight, lifted off. And so when Helen says it's possible, it is possible. It's just a matter of us putting our mindset and changing our mindset and really making that decision. You got to make that decision what you want to do. And for Sam and I, we made the decision we want to be debt free, and we want to use that wealth for something else other than putting it into debt. And so that's where we're at this moment, is that now we have the freedom to, if we want to. So we went to a restaurant, Gas Lamp, here in Hawaii, and it's a speakeasy. We went there, had no idea how much it was going to cost. Sucker was $600. Okay, $600 for dinner just for the two of us. I'm like, all right, so paid. It's fine. We paid it off. But what I'm saying is that back then, I think I would have been stressing out, and I would have been like sweating, and like my heart would be palpitating. Oh my gosh. But at that moment, it was like, here you go. So yeah, that is my story. So now we have the freedom to be able to do that. But I'm still in the mind frame of let's save money, right? So even though I came from that scarcity mindset, even though I came from that experience where I would put in my debit card and then it would be like declined, now when that happens, I'm like, oh, it's declining because I've made so many purchases. They're thinking that there's a fraud, right? So that's when there's a decline. But I don't have that same feeling of, holy shit, I don't have enough money. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my God, absolutely. I totally get it. Whew, I want to end it on that note, because we're going to leave you with that feeling. If you know what the feeling is of either your card declining because you don't have the money, or your card declining because you do have the money and the bank's worried, like if that's really you, that is perfect. Which one are you? I hope me and January's inspirational stories has encouraged you to take this journey into getting debt free and taking the next step forward into getting financially wealthy and healthy. We're on this journey, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear if our stories have touched you, if this podcast has touched you, and please subscribe and share this with your friends. Excuse me. My throat, I don't know what's going on. I'm just so excited. So thank you for supporting us. You can buy us a coffee. We love coffee, and please give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and leave a review on our iTunes, Spotify, Sexy Freedom Media Podcast, and tag us if you share this on Instagram, and we'll share it on our stories. So thank you so much for joining in. Until next time, ahi y muchas gracias.
Aloha, and have a great day.
Want to hear more?
Visit us at SexyFreedomMedia.com.